And welcome back to the Sports Authority. We now are joined by Richard Skinner, digital sports columnist on local12.com/sports. Skinny, we'll start with the biggest news of the week. Wade Miley and his no-hitter. Is that the most random no-hitter I think that you've ever seen? Because I definitely did not think Wade Miley would be the one to throw one.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually a hard thrower, right, who's younger and gets away with some stuff, and he probably walks 7 or 8 guys. I mean, he made that look easy, too, on top of it. I think he's the 5th oldest maybe to throw a no-hitter or something along those lines. It really, if you'd have told me anybody on this staff, I'd have gone Luis Castillo just because of his stuff. I'd have gone Sonny Gray. I'd have gone on a good day Tyler Mahle even. And I probably would have picked somebody else before I picked Wade Miley to throw the no-hitter if he had to give me 5 guys. So, yeah, it's good for him. I mean, it was awesome. The storyline with the tattoo that his son made him wear and all that was really cool.
It's interesting with the Reds because that no-hitter has kind of overshadowed a team that's very middle of the road and has been struggling lately. Where do you think they are right now? I know it's still way too early to panic completely, but I think we're starting to see a trend of where this team's going.
Yeah, I think the trend is this is a team that unless it gets Luis Castillo right, unless it gets more consistency from some guys in the lineup, Eugenio Suarez being one of them, it probably is going to spin its wheels probably at 500 or below. I think the potential is there for more. I've thought all along there's the potential there for more. But if Luis Castillo doesn't pitch, it's going to be hard to string together long winning streaks. I mean, then you're asking Jeff Hoffman to give you great start after great start. All you're asking Jeff Hoffman to do is kind of eat up innings. You're not getting a no-hitter out of Wade Miley again. I'm just going to tell you that right now. That's not going to happen. And Sonny Gray's pitched really well here of late, and Tyler Mahle's been pretty consistent. But until you get some of these guys that should be consistent and play to the back of those cards, you're barely a 500 team.
Gary and I debated earlier in the show that if it was time to start panicking about Geno Suarez. We both said it's time. Where do you stand on Geno?
Yeah, I think it is, and that's where I wonder was Friday night the move to third base just because you had to shuffle other stuff around, or was that more to just get his mind off a shortstop, get him back to thinking hitting first? Yeah, and listen, I know he did hit better if you go from an OPS perspective at the end of last year, but when you look at the compilation of the 60 games, and it's still a small sample, but if you look at the compilation and now you compile it with another 30 plus, Chris, you're talking now 90 plus games of a guy hitting under 200 with a lot of strikeouts, and I think it is troublesome because he's not, it's not like he bounced back from this in a significant way. It's almost like he kind of blipped and then it's straight back down again.
So what do you do with Geno?
I think you let him play through it till Memorial Day. That always seems to be the baseball line of demarcation, at least one of them. 4th of July, trade deadline being another one, All-Star game-ish, that type of thing. So that's the first line of demarcation. And maybe getting him off shortstop and give him, what would that be, 3 weeks to kind of clear his head and just, play a position he's comfortable with and worry about hitting more. Maybe that does it. But if it's Memorial Day and he's still not hitting, then you better hope Joey Votto's back and you can move Moustakas back to third, and then you have to figure out the shortstop angle at that point.
We'll talk about Joey Votto now. Obviously, that was the big news with him going out. There's a lot of shuffling around. Do you think they should bring somebody in to kind of help? I know Pujols' name has been floated out there. I don't think Pujols is the right move. But
A, that's not going to happen, and B, his tank is about empty. If there's a tank that's this full and here's the empty, he's about right there on the plateau. He can occasionally run into a fastball and hit one out. He's just not the player he used to be. No, I think it's going to come from on the roster. It's going to come from what they did, over the weekend of shuffling some guys around. Getting Shogo back kind of helps a little bit. I don't know if it helps in that regard, but now it pushes Senzel more to the infield side of things. I'll be interested to see eventually what they do with Indy. I mean, do they give him a crack at short? Maybe they have to, but I think for the short term at least, it's Moustakas at first, and then whenever they do it second, short, and third is probably a nightly adventure at this point, and that's not a good place to be.
They got 7 games coming up of this road trip, which is significant. The next 7 games are against teams that aren't very good, Pittsburgh and then 4 in Colorado. How critical is it, and I know, again, still early, I'm not saying it's time to panic, but how critical is it that they come away from this at least with winning both series?
Yeah, I thought before the year started that if this team was going to contend for a division title or a playoff berth, it had to dominate the Pirates and had to beat the sub-500 teams outside this division, and then just kind of hope you spin your wheels against the rest, especially inside the division. So, yeah, I think that makes it a big week because Colorado's not very good. We know Pittsburgh's not very good. Because the thing is, if you're not dominating Pittsburgh in the division, most of the other teams in the division are, and that's where you're going to lose some ground. If you're not the one doing the dominating and you look up and instead of being 13-6 or 5 against them, you're 500 against them, I think that makes a lot of difference in the division this year, so they need to dominate the Pirates for sure. So, yes, it's critical.
Let's change tone to the Bengals. Not a lot of Bengals news this week. However, we're getting a better idea of when their summer camp and their workouts are going to be.
Good.
Yeah, I know that the Bengals have not been one to say we're not doing this. We're going all virtual. Where do they stand right now, and where do you think they're going to go?
I'm assuming they're going to go because they were not one of the teams that elected to opt out earlier to do the OTAs on grass and actually have players on the field. Now, what that will look like, I think, is going to be the most interesting thing because let's not forget, for the OTAs, those are voluntary. Most every veteran attends them because they want to be around, they want to be a good teammate. It's not overly stressful. Some guys in contract situations dealing with some injuries will maybe even show up but not participate. So that'll be an interesting thing to note of who all shows up for that. I'm assuming most will. And then obviously the mandatory minicamp in June is mandatory. If you don't show up, you're fine for that. So yeah, I'm interested. Obviously this weekend's the rookie minicamp. But yeah, when those OTAs hit, it'll be interesting to see who decides not to show up. I got a feeling most guys will. I think most guys want back to normalcy. They want to be around the facility. I really believe that.
And it seems like of a lot of the teams, I guess if the Bengals were a veteran team, had a lot of veteran talent, I wouldn't blame them for skipping out and saying, I need some more time. I don't want to put the stress on my body. But this is a Bengals team that really needs as much time on the field to prepare as they can get.
Yeah, and I think that helps a little bit too. Is I think the young guys probably want to be around it as much as the vets. If you're an 8-year guy and you've gone through the grind of an OTA and a mini camp and a training camp, you don't want any part of that if you don't have to do that stuff. Some of them show up and it's more for show than anything else. But no, I think with this team being that young, I think if guys want to hit the ground running, I think they'll take part.
Big week ahead on Sunday. FC Cincinnati opening up their new stadium.
It is really beautiful.
It is a beautiful stadium.
They may not score a goal from here until Kingdom Come, but it's a beautiful stadium.
You've been around this city longer than I have. How big is a stadium opening, and what does this mean to the city to have that third stadium in it?
Yeah, it pales. I think Great American Ballpark opening was the one that hit a lot of people. Paul Brown to a lesser extent. I think there's just a more romanticizing with baseball stadiums in general, and the fact that, hey, for the first time, we don't have a multi-purpose doing Bengals and Reds. It's Bengals got theirs, now Reds are getting theirs. But the one for FC Cincinnati, you talk about the modern stadium. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. I hope the product matches that because, listen, it'll bring people in, and the novelty still of soccer continues to bring people in. But eventually, you got to win some games, or you at least got to score some goals. Let's start the mini goal of scoring goals. But I think it's awesome, and I think those fans that love soccer in the city are going to love it until the team, if they're bad, continues to be bad.
You mentioned it's the first modern stadium in town. Paul Brown's probably overdue for some upgrades.
Yeah,
Does this push the envelope like, hey, the other guy's got a new stadium. We need to.
They've upgraded some things there, the video boards and whatnot. But yeah, it feels like just yesterday they opened that stadium up, and we're going on 20 some odd years. So yeah, it's just so sterile. Hopefully the Ring of Honor changes some of the feel of that too. But yeah, anytime you get something new, I'm going to guess the rest of the guys in town want something newer too.
He's Richard Skinner, digital sports columnist on local12.com/sports.